In this video, we're going to learn to change the stitch properties using our properties box. And so as a good example of that, let's just create some horizontal text. And notice that in your properties area, you have your text tab where you would normally adjust the text, the letters of your text, and your text extra tab. But now we have some extra tabs. There's the fill tab, there's the underlay tab, and a push-pull compensation tab. And these are about improving the quality and being able to use your fonts at even more sizes. So for example, at the current size of the text, which if we look at it is 0.79 of an inch, the satin fill is perfect. And if I look here in the properties box, it says that this font is good for up to about 2 inches. But if I decided that I needed to use it at 4 inches, what would happen? Well, the satin stitches would become very long. And not that that's wrong, but the program would introduce what's known as a split satin. So where it's possible to be satin, it will satin stitch it, and where it gets kind of long, it will split it. But if you decided that you wanted a more smooth texture to your extra large text, then you could come to your properties box and click on the tab for the fill. And instead of using a satin fill for your text, you could change it to any number of different pattern fills, like a smooth pattern fill, and just click apply. And now it will have that same sort of look to the letters, but be filled in with a different style of stitching. And so this is one of the really powerful things about the customizer side of your program here, is that you can take control of the way the stitches go in your properties box. And so in addition to smooth style, I could choose any number of different patterns, and a lot of times these create sort of just ever so slight different patterns and textures to them as they stitch out. So if I get a little closer, you can see them. There's even one called snakeskin, and so it will have kind of an extra special decoration to it. But pattern 1 and pattern 2 and pattern 3 are technically the most common ones that we use to fill things in with kind of a different smooth texture like that. So in addition to adjusting the stitching and the style of stitching, the next tab says underlay, and currently it's not got any turned on. And so if you watch the design, so it's simply sewing the top stitches, and we can add underlying stitches to make it sew better. So I'm going to add a contour and click apply, and then what you'll see is when it stitches that there are outlining stitches or contour stitches that help outline our shape and make it have a nice clean edge when we embroider it. I could add to the contour a parallel or a zigzag, which is like a double parallel, and click apply. And now if you watch it slow redraw, for each letter you'll have the contour plus that's the extra zigzag element. So it kind of helps to fill in the letter with an open sort of layer of stitching, and that way when your cover stitch comes along, it's nicely supported on top of the stitching, on top of the fabric, and it makes your text look nicer. So in addition to the tab for the fill style and the tab for the underlay style, there is also a tab for push and pull compensation. And so this is really about compensating for the effect of embroidering on stretchy fabrics. We call it pull compensation. It can be done by a percentage or an absolute number, which means you simply type how much you want. I can come in here and just add a small amount, like maybe 0.3 of a millimeter would be an adequate amount to add to both sides. And what that does is counteracts for the shrinking that will happen kind of naturally when you sew on all the different styles of fabric. The other one is the push compensation. So sometimes you'll want to use this to, I guess, help your fills from getting too long. And it's really about laying one row of thread beside the next row of thread. If there was run stitch outlines around this, that's when you might need to use a push compensation. And you can choose by millimeters or by lines. Lines meaning simply how many lines of thread would you like to have kind of shortened. I'll have it shortened by 1 line. and click apply, and you'll see it'll just get about one line shorter at each end of the line. And so these are the compensations called push and pull, your underlay styles, and your fill styles. And this can be done not just with text, but with the elements. So for example, if you open up a design and it's already in a stitch-based format like this, then you can use the special function known as convert to outline. So notice right now, when I click on the pink color, it simply says stitches. But if I right click, and I can apply convert to outlines just to one color or the entire design, whatever I select. But I'm going to choose convert to outlines advanced, have it remove all the underlay and merge the fills. And so we end up with one pink shape, which we could now come in here and change the style of stitching. And not only can I change it to be, a random or a smooth fill pattern, notice up above that I can also change it from a standard fill to a motif fill. And now we have literally hundreds of motif patterns that could be applied inside of our little cupcake shape. And so it really is very cool when you learn how to convert your stitches into outlines, because now you have the ability to select them in your properties box and adjust things like the style of stitching. Now, if I go back to standard and I go back to a standard pattern, that's when I get the additional tabs for things like the style of underlay. And I could put a contour and perhaps a perpendicular underlay underneath this filled area, or even a lattice underlay. So if I choose that, then when it sews the pink, you'll see there is what's known as a full lattice plus a contour, and that will create a great barrier of embroidery before your top stitching. So once again, this video has been all about how we have the ability to select an embroidery element and change the properties for both the type of stitching, the type of underlay, and the push and pull compensation.